Bonjour et bienvenue pour cette première interview du trauma à la mission. Aujourd'hui, j'ai un grand plaisir de vous présenter mon mentor ici en Thaïlande, Fernando Etiadura. Il m'a tellement apporté, il m'a formé au coaching trauma informé ICF. Il dirige une entreprise de coaching à l'international. Nous sommes un groupe de coachs dans tous les recoins du monde, une des rares écoles qui forme au coaching trauma informé. Fernando, c'est donc un visionnaire, mais cette interview, elle va aller au-delà de ça. Fernando réellement incarne l'alchimie intérieure, la transmutation du trauma à la mission. Et il va vous partager aujourd'hui, bien entendu, son parcours si riche de résilience et de contribution à grande échelle aujourd'hui en transmutant ces traumas. Et va vous donner aussi des clés d'alchimie, des clés de transmutation. Je vous invite donc d'ores et déjà à préparer, comme vous le savez, votre cahier, préparer votre corps. Vous allez recevoir des codes de transmutation très importants. Et je vous invite également à activer les sous-titres ou le doublage de cette vidéo. Ça va être une interview en anglais. On va parler calmement et on va faire en sorte que vous ressentiez vraiment ce que nous disions. Mais aujourd'hui, YouTube permet les sous-titres et le doublage. Voilà, donc prenez un moment pour vous recentrer et écouter ce que Fernando a à vous dire aujourd'hui. Il a un message aussi spécialement pour vous, les entrepreneurs conscients, à la fin de cette interview. Fernando, dear Fernando, thank you for being here with us today. Thank you.
So, dear Amandine, thank you so very much for inviting me here. I think this is a wonderful initiative that you are creating. I feel honored and I look forward to expanding this beautiful profession that we are in together. So, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. So I want to start sharing that when I invited you for this interview, the first thing that came to your mind was, oh, Amandine, I really resonate with this topic. I really believe that the more we heal, the more we heal the trauma, the more we elevate our spirituality, and the more abundance flows in our life and purpose. So, of course, we're gonna discuss that today. But I really want to start with your very rich journey from trauma to purpose. So, can you tell us what is or was the most significant moments who revealed this beautiful purpose you're carrying today?
Thank you, Amandine. It is such an honor to share our own experiences, and I think it's really very important. And I also really love the sentence that you use, trauma to purpose. I think it's a truly deeply meaningful one. And like you extended, it then continues on to bring the highest abundance, joy, love in life as well. I think when we approach something with purpose, it automatically opens us to abundance. So thank you for the beautiful that work you do as a trauma-informed coach, Amandine. Really appreciate. So thank you for asking about me. So this is a long story, but I'm going to say it very quickly in short. The story begins not with myself. It begins with my mother. When she was 4 years old, her father committed suicide. And unfortunately, that very same day, they found out my grandfather committed suicide. My grandfather's family evicted my mother with other four siblings and my grandmother, and instantly they were homeless. So my mother had to grow up in an environment which was very traumatic for a young 4-year-old girl to grow throughout her life. She has been exposed to many challenging situations, atrocious experiences. And then once she met with my father and had us, we grew up in an environment where my mother's ghosts from the past, may I say like that, ghosts from the past were showing up. So now, as a psychologist, I can look back at her and see many different challenges that she experienced. For an example, I clearly see the complex post-traumatic stress disorder that she was suffering from, the manic episodes of depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, and so on. And as we both are very aware, when children grow up in an environment where parents are unable to provide the nurturing and caring, it automatically, naturally traumatizes children. So
Mhm.
myself and my sister, we grew up in an environment where my mother was not mentally stable and my father was disassociating from what was happening to my mother. So she was an absent father.
Mhm.
And therefore, we were exposed to many unhealthy situations, many traumatic experiences, which we call adverse childhood experiences. So, now to speed up and answer your question, I have been drawn to this profession as a coach, as a psychotherapist from the very beginning of my life.
Mhm.
But just before COVID time, I started to recognize some of the things that were hurting me. If not, I myself was hurting myself. For an example, about let's say 7, 8 years ago, in order for me to be able to get to sleep, I would drink alcohol. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's a half a bottle of vodka, if not
Mhm.
4 or 5 bottles of wine. And that was the consumption. And I knew that something was deeply wrong with me. So this is when even though I was a psychotherapist, although I was a professional coach, I myself wasn't aware how trauma was playing a role in my life. So as I
Mhm.
started learning more and more about my own trauma and how my past showed up like the ghost of my mother and ghost of my past started showing up in the form of trauma and difficulties I explained. And I must mention that what became the breakthrough for me was going through a journey of sacred plant medicine integration.
Mhm.
I remember f- really working through trauma, recognizing that there's a lot of trauma responses, unconscious behavior patterns that I couldn't break consciously were controlling me, like whispering my ear what to do, how to be, how to feel. And I remember going through my very first sacred plant medicine integration session, waking up next day feeling like I'm rejuvenated, wanting to do things that I usually dread doing. And I remember feeling like this day after day up until the seventh day. On the seventh day, I remember waking up, stepping out of bed, and immediately falling on the ground on my knees and start sobbing. The sobbing was not because I was sad,
Mhm.
sobbing because I was happy. The reason was, for the very first time in my life, I recognized what it is to be mentally, emotionally healthy. Because I noticed that
Mhm.
growing up in a traumatic environment, being exposed to many trauma as a child, even as an adult, that I was living a life unwell life, unaware life. And that seventh
Mhm.
day, when I recognized that this is what it is to be mentally, emotionally healthy, I
Mhm.
access abundance, I access freedom, and that's what
Mhm.
drives my work. So thank you very much for asking, Amandine.
Yeah, thank you. And it's true that there is this moment when we grow up insecure that, oh, this is what feels to be secure. So this is a very important phase from trauma to mission that is very important to share because this is the beauty after trauma, one piece. So thank you for this. So now from how did this experience shape the way you guide other people today through your coaching?
Thank you. What a beautiful question. Yes. Um, I remember that same very day when I experienced myself this great relief. Like you said, the purpose was emerging, the abundance was appearing. And I wanted to scream through the roof. I wanted to
Yeah.
tell the entire world that healing is possible. We can
Mhm.
mend trauma, we can learn from trauma. Trauma can bring us to our true life purpose. And
Mhm.
how the work guides me now is making me deeply empathetic. making me deeply compassionate. And I'm not afraid to use the word loving towards my clients. The reason
Mhm.
being that I know that there was so much light in me that now I can share with others. And
Yeah.
at the time I was suffering, I was unconsciously being controlled. I was covering my own light. I didn't know that there was
Mhm.
this purpose within me, this light within me. So now what guides me is every time when I meet a client, an individual, I know even though they might be angry, although they might be frustrated, maybe even they're angry with me, but I know
Yeah.
deep within them, there's that light, there's that love, there's that purpose. I know that it is at the moment covered, closed. So what guides me is to enable my clients to find that light within them because I myself have deeply experienced it and felt it. And how about you, Amandine? It makes me very curious to learn what guides you. Why are you doing this work?
Yeah. So there is in our stories when we turn our life course for resilience, when we grow from resilience, there is, yeah, in our stories, key moments. My key moment was when I was traveling the world and partying with my backpack around Asia, and I stopped in Thailand. And I said, "Oh, I'm free. I'm independent woman. Now I need a boyfriend." And I would be super happy. And I was very focused on finding a partner. And I was sure I was manifesting it in my journal. And I found someone in Thailand who pushed the buttons of all my trauma. and I and I and I told myself that I don't want my trauma to win over my happiness. So that was a kind of contract with myself and my soul, and I knew that to for my happiness to win, I needed to turn it into a purpose. Right. So this is so it happened in Thailand, and then I met you. So you know the rest of the story.
Yeah, I mean, every time I meet you, every time we interact with within this context, I notice that deep passion in you. I see how you have this very strong embodiment, your own healing, how you extend. And as you're sharing this story, I clearly resonate. The purpose behind the work that you do, the embodiment that you are very strongly carrying. So it's very important that you are here, you're supporting your clients, and you're educating the generations and healing generations to come. So I take my hats off to you, salute you for the great work that you do, Amandine. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's keep doing this work together. We both are very like embodied in our purposes. So it's super encouraging also to co-create together, right? This is part of the purpose, the co-creation. And that's true that our journeys helped us crack new codes in a way. What we are doing in sessions with our client is actually transmitting new codes instead of, oh, I had in English, they say, I had a crappy childhood, so, bad luck. You have to handle life with it. And in what we are talking about today, it's about, yeah, but what about shifting the codes from trauma to purpose? And this is not something that comes from nowhere, it's something that we have cracked ourselves inside. So if we want to share today some codes, right? Some key stages of this inner alchemy. This is what we are. We are alchemists, right? With emotions and energies. And what would be for you the case stages from trauma to purpose, right? It's like it's a journey. There is no race. There is nothing to achieve at the end, but it's a journey. So how do you see this journey?
Thank you, Amandine. I really love how you introduced the question and also this word inner alchemy. I think it's a really wonderful word to use, as you said, through our emotion, through our thought, and what is happening in our nervous system, our environment. We are transforming. No
Mm,
expectations as such. I think the deeper we look at even metaphysical or spiritual realities, it's not an expectation, but it's about being in the moment. Now, when you say what could be the stages, I think you also had an insight there, which I appreciate very much. It's not an expectation; it's a journey in itself. So, how I see the stages is that I think the most important thing is that asking the question when we suffer, when we are unaware why something is happening to us, we know that there's something that is not serving me, or I am often sad,
mm,
I am not experiencing abundance, I'm not feeling happiness, I can't find joy in my relationships, I can't deeply love myself, I criticize myself, seeing myself in the mirror. So if we find ourselves in places like this, it's important that we go inward and asking ourselves what might be driving us, what might be that I don't know, making me behave in this specific way, not being able to access purpose, love, abundance. And I think when we go inward, I think the very first step is to truly go inward and to recognize that trauma, often our adverse experiences, challenging experiences, depriving experiences, which we consider as trauma, is playing a role in our life unconsciously. I think this is something
mm,
very important that we need to understand. And that's why your work is so very important, Amanda, in educating people, helping them understand that what you don't know, because trauma shows up unconsciously, which is what we call trauma responses. So when we go deep within ourselves and able to recognize that there is something, asking the right questions, and recognizing that there is something that is whispering in my ear, I don't have full control over my life. And that, I think, is the first door to open. And then to be in company of practitioners like you who bring wealth of knowledge to the world and helping people understand what is happening. And then beginning a journey with a community, with practitioners like you, with other people who are on a journey of
mm,
expansion, healing, finding their purpose, working together and becoming open, vulnerable, and looking deep inside of us. And then, of course, there are so many modalities. Although trauma science is still new, there are so many modalities that we can use. And I see that you are using yoga, trauma-informed coaching, and many different modalities just in your practice. Some of the somatic work you do. So, working with practitioners, working with communities, and willing to go through inner journeys, finding out and
mm,
be very mindful and conscious. And lastly, what I would like to say is that keeping in mind that this journey might not be always Instagram worthy. It might not always be beautiful. There are going to be beautiful moments that we rise
mm,
from the mountains and see the freedom. And at the same time, when we go deep inside, sometimes we will also brought to our knees. And that's why it is important to working with qualified practitioners like you, those who can guide, those who can support. So I think it's a journey of ups and downs. As we begin, there may be ups, more downs sometimes, ups and downs,
mm,
but later I think it becomes more of ups. We are starting to be able to accept downs and then
mm.
celebrate ups that we feel, the high moments that we are experiencing. So, like you very well said, it's truly a journey of journeying within and
Yes.
making unconscious conscious so that we can access the purpose that you're talking about.
Mm, yes. Beautiful. And what you say made me think about a specific aspect in this journey toward purpose. Um, for the people who are listening to you right now, many are coaches, healers, conscious entrepreneurs, right? Many of them, they are called by something very strong inside. right? They know they have to transmute the trauma. We have this signal. We know since forever. I feel like even when I was a little girl, I knew that I had a purpose. It's crazy to say that. But so most of us listening to you, we know we have this fire, this force inside, but on this way to purpose, we are very often self-sabotaging ourselves, right? This is what you're talking about. Trauma is something that keeps you small. Replay shame, repel guilt, loyalties, transgenerational traumas and stuff like that. So the way is also paved with sabotage that come from the trauma, fear of rejections, right? So this is also something that you have to transmute, right? So what would you tell to our audience today about shifting those sabotages into this full contribution, expressing this full voice from within?
That's a very purposeful question, Amandine. It's music to my ears to hear that even as a little girl, you felt this fire, you felt this calling, and I clearly see how you're called to this beautiful work that you do with the passion that you bring forth. And I think your question itself was very rich, and it contained some of the um, underlying deeper truths about why sometimes we end up sabotaging ourselves. Now, if we simply look at our past generations, like we just mentioned that trauma science is still new. In the last 10 years, there's a lot of research happening, there's a lot of modalities coming out. And trauma science itself only has been in the world for a few decades. So
Mm,
therefore, if you look at our parents, if you look at our grandparents, our generations, they were not really aware. They did not have this knowledge. Therefore, our parents, our grandparents, our generations have been exposed to a lot of trauma, many wars, many conflicts, many problems, including poverty, not having enough resources in the world. So it's very understandable why many of us are still suffering some of
mm,
those, like you said, transgenerational, intergenerational trauma. Some of it was witnessed, some of it was experienced, and some of it was passed on to us into our DNA. Now, when I work with whether it is a practitioner in trauma, maybe a psychotherapist or a coach, or even a client who is going through their own inner journeys, something I often hear is that people sometimes saying things like, I don't have trauma. I had a
mm,
great childhood. Well, that is wonderful. I'm so happy to hear that. But when we say that, often we forget that, well, you might not have experienced trauma, but how about your parents? How about your grandparents? All that. And then also we need to ask, do I really truly know what trauma fully means? Do we know
mm,
enough knowledge to say that I do not have trauma?
mm,
Or
mhm,
if not, if you look at it from what are our challenges currently, like you said, self-sabotaging for an example. So truly being, if especially if someone is a practitioner, truly opening ourselves. I think that's the most
mm,
important thing. If you want to
mhm,
work as a psychotherapist, a coach, healer, any of this, I think the first and the most important thing is the openness. When we
yes.
become open, we go beyond what we know. We educate ourselves, we look deep within, like I mentioned. And also, the science is catching up. And at the same time, there are many vibrational, energetic
Mhm,
practices as well. I also see a little bit of divide among them. And I think when we choose a side and I say, I don't have this, I don't do this, I don't do that, then we operate within some kind of an arrogance. We are not fully open. I think as
mhm,
practitioners in this space, openness is the most important thing, education and willing to deep within ourselves. And for final thought, we as healers, coaches, psychotherapists, and any other professionals in this, we need to heal ourselves first to begin with. We need to
mhm,
remember that we need to be honest with ourselves. When we
yeah,
become healed, the more we access our purpose, the more we can enable that healing, hold space for our clients to heal as well. So I think the key to self-sabotage, or the resolution to self-sabotage, is truly openness, reducing arrogance, and truly going inward. Before we tell our clients, go inward ourselves, going inward and finding those healing possibilities. And that's when I believe that we access more purpose and diminish self-sabotage.
There is a lot to talk about from what you shared, so we can have the rest of this conversation over a coffee in Bangkok. To gently close this conversation together, something comes through my mind, because you're amazing master coach, and you have told me so much about powerful questioning, like powerful coaching questions that I really love, and this is the beauty also of our profession. What would be a powerful coaching question for our audience today? People who really decide to take this path from trauma to purpose.
That's a beautiful question. What would be a powerful question? I would like to answer this with the inspiration you created in your previous inquiry, Amandine, which is, you said that there's an inner fire in you, there's an inner calling. Even as a little girl, you knew that. So I would like to ask our audience today, how do you honestly find this inner fire? If you have a sensation of this calling, this fire, and then when you look at yourself where you are today, how aligned are you with that inner fire? How aligned are you with that inner fire? If you're aligned, that is amazing. Congratulations. If you feel that there's a misalignment, so this is the actual question. If you find a misalignment, I would like to leave you with, what would you like to do about it?
Realigning with the inner fire. This is really beautiful. If you may, I will share this powerful question on the social media for people to react. And if they have some questions to you, I can also send to you in in English if you agree with that. Thank you for this conversation. It really shows how much you bring coaching, therapy, emotion, energetics, also spirituality, all together in this beautiful coaching practice. You really embody the vision, like the visionary coach that we need in our world today. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for teaching me everything that I'm sharing on my YouTube channel today. Thank you, Fernando. Thank you for this time. I really look forward to extend this conversation next time I see you in person in Bangkok. Pour mes chers amis français qui avaient suivi cette interview, je vous laisse prendre quelques secondes dans votre cahier pour vraiment intégrer toutes les questions que Fernando a soulevées aujourd'hui. Vous pouvez bien sûr me poser toutes vos questions et je pourrais lui les transmettre ou je pourrais y répondre directement. Restez bien dans votre corps, continuez d'écrire dans vos cahiers tous ces codes que Fernando vous a partagés aujourd'hui. Et si vous voulez aller plus loin, si vous êtes vraiment décidé à prendre cette voie du trauma à la mission, je vous invite pour un audit énergétique et émotionnel de votre mission de vie aujourd'hui. Prenez votre rendez-vous offert et j'aurai plaisir à vous inviter ici à Comac. Je vous dis vraiment merci du fond du cœur pour votre confiance et votre courage. Thank you, Fernando, from my heart to yours for this time, and I'll see you very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amandine. It's an honor. Thank you.
Bye.